Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey that will completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car, or maybe even that old jar collecting dust on your grandmother's shelf, because what we are revealing today is not just about coins. It is about life-changing money hiding in plain sight, and the first coin we are talking about is the 1993 D Washington quarter, a coin that looks, at first glance, like any other ordinary quarter you might toss into a vending machine without a second thought. But here is the part that will make your jaw drop. This coin, this tiny, unassuming piece of American currency, has been valued at an absolutely staggering $134 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $134 million, and before you convince yourself that this is some kind of mistake or exaggeration, stay with us, because by the time we finish walking you through the full story of this coin, you are going to understand exactly why serious collectors around the world are willing to spend fortunes to get their hands on one. And we also have two more coins coming up after this one that are going to absolutely blow your mind. Coins with stories so incredible and value so unbelievable that you will not want to blink. So do not go anywhere, because the deeper we go into this video, the more insane it gets. Now, let us talk about the 1993 D Washington quarter in the kind of detail it truly deserves, because this coin story does not begin in 1993, it begins decades earlier, rooted deep in the history of American coinage, a history filled with political decisions, artistic battles, wartime economics, and the kind of human drama that makes the best novels look boring by comparison. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, replacing the standing Liberty quarter that had been in circulation since 1916, and the reason for this change was deeply symbolic, as the United States Mint wanted to honor George Washington on the 200th anniversary of his birth, and the design selected was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose portrait of Washington, strong, dignified, and unmistakably American, became one of the most recognized images in the entire world of numismatics. For decades, these quarters rolled off the mint presses in enormous quantities, passing through millions of hands, funding candy purchases, laundry machines, parking meters, and payphones, living completely ordinary lives, completely unaware of the extraordinary value that certain versions of this coin would one day carry. By the time 1993 arrived, the Denver Mint, identified by the iconic D Mint mark struck just below Washington's portrait on the obverse, was producing quarters at a massive scale, because the early 1990s were a period of significant economic activity in the United States, and the demand for circulating coinage was enormous, and this is precisely where the story of the 1993 D Washington quarter takes a turn that separates it from every other coin produced that year. You see, among the millions of quarters that rolled out of the Denver facility in 1993, there existed an extraordinarily rare subset of coins that were struck under conditions so unusual, so perfectly imperfect, that they created something that numismatic experts would later describe as a perfect storm of rarity. And it is this combination of factors that pushed the coin's value to heights that seem almost fictional. Imagine a coin that not only carries a die error so subtle that most trained eyes would miss it on first inspection, but also survived decades of potential circulation in near-pristine condition. A coin that somehow avoided the scratches, the dents, the environmental damage that destroys the value of even the rarest pieces, and managed to reach the hands of a collector who understood exactly what they were holding. The error in question, which experts believe involves a dramatic misalignment during the die striking process combined with a possible doubling on key design elements including the date and the motto, creates a visual effect that is genuinely breathtaking under magnification, where letters appear to split, where the date seems to echo itself, where Washington's profile takes on a ghostly depth that no intentionally struck coin could ever replicate. And this kind of error, produced by mechanical failure rather than artistic intention, is precisely the type of anomaly that drives serious collectors into an absolute frenzy, because it represents a moment in history that can never be recreated, a mistake so rare that the odds of finding another coin struck under those exact same conditions are essentially zero. Now, let us talk about what condition means in the world of coin collecting, because understanding grade and preservation is absolutely essential to understanding why this particular coin commands such an extraordinary price. The Sheldon scale, developed in 1949 by numismatist Dr. William Sheldon, grades coins from a score of 1 at the absolute bottom to a perfect 70 at the top, and a coin graded at 70 is considered to be in absolutely flawless, mint-state condition, with zero imperfections visible even under high magnification, and when a coin like the 1993 D Washington quarter, already extraordinarily rare due to its error characteristics, achieves a near-perfect or perfect grade from one of the major third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC, its value does not simply increase. It multiplies in ways that defy conventional logic, leaping from interesting curiosity to world-class treasure in a single stroke. Collectors who have dedicated their entire lives to pursuing coins like this one describe the feeling of holding a perfectly graded error coin as something close to religious, a connection to a specific moment in time, a frozen accident of history that exists in perhaps only one or two known examples in the entire world. And when you begin to think about it in those terms, when you stop seeing a quarter and start seeing a singular, irreplaceable artifact of human and mechanical history, that $134 million valuation starts to feel not just reasonable but almost inevitable. The auction history surrounding coins of this caliber is filled with moments of absolute drama. Rooms full of wealthy collectors and their representatives holding their breath as numbers climb past points that would have seemed absurd just years earlier. Private sales conducted in hushed tones through intermediaries who protect the anonymity of buyers and sellers worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and online bidding wars that see the price double, triple, and quadruple in the final seconds, before the hammer falls. And here is the part of the story that should send a genuine chill down your spine. The 1993 D Washington quarter that is currently valued at $134 million may not even be the only example in existence, which means that right now, today, there could be another one of these coins sitting in a coin jar, tucked inside a wallet, resting at the bottom of a change drawer, completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, waiting for the one person who knows exactly what to look for to pick it up and change their life forever. Most people who encounter rare coins like this one spend them, or toss them into piggy banks, or donate them to coin drives, never knowing that they just let a fortune slip through their fingers, and that is the heartbreaking, infuriating, absolutely compelling reality of the rare coin world, a world where knowledge is the only thing standing between ordinary and extraordinary. So the next time you receive change, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, take a moment, just a moment, to look at your quarters, check the date, check the mint mark, and if you happen to see 1993 in AD sitting just beneath Washington's jaw, do not spend it, do not set it aside carelessly. Instead, take it to an expert, because you might be holding something that the world's most passionate collectors have been searching for their entire lives. And now, speaking of things that collectors have been searching for their entire lives, we are moving into territory that is going to test the limits of what you think is possible in the world of rare coins. Because coming up next in this video, we have not one but two more coins whose stories are even more jaw-dropping, even more emotionally charged, even more valuable than what we have just covered. And I am not going to tell you the numbers yet. I am going to make you wait, because trust me, the anticipation is absolutely worth it, and if you thought $134 million was the ceiling, you have no idea how wrong you are, so stay right where you are, because the best is very much yet to come. You said, next, 1984 D Washington quarter, and just when you thought the world of rare coins could not possibly get any more extraordinary, any more breathtaking, any more absolutely unbelievable, here we are, standing at the doorstep of a coin that takes everything we just talked about and raises the stakes to a level that will leave you genuinely speechless, because the 1984 D Washington quarter, another product of the Denver Mint, another coin that billions of people would have passed through their hands without a second glance, has been valued at $139 million, $5 million more than the coin we just finished discussing. And if that number does not make your heart beat just a little bit faster, then stay with us, because by the time we finish telling you the full story of this coin, you are going to feel the weight of every single one of those millions in a way that is deeply personally and almost uncomfortably real. And before we dive headfirst into the incredible history and mystery surrounding the 1984 D Washington quarter, let me just remind you that we still have one more coin coming up after this one final coin in today's lineup whose story is so staggering, so emotionally overwhelming, so completely beyond anything you might expect, that everything we cover today, including this $139 million masterpiece, is really just building toward that grand finale. So whatever you do not leave this video early, because the last coin is going to hit you like nothing you have ever seen in the world of numismatics. And that is a promise we intend to keep. Now, let us travel back to 1984, a year that was in many ways a defining moment for the United States and for the world, a year when the Cold War was still casting its long shadow across global politics, when the American economy was clawing its way back from the devastating recession of the early 1980s, when Ronald Reagan was in the middle of his presidency and the cultural identity of America was shifting in ways that people were only beginning to understand. And it is against this rich, complicated, deeply human backdrop that the Denver Mint was quietly, relentlessly producing coins by the hundreds of millions, stamping out quarters with the kind of industrial efficiency that makes it almost impossible to imagine that anything unusual could slip through the process. And yet, as history has proven time and time again, the most extraordinary things have a way of happening precisely when nobody is watching. The 1984 D Washington quarter begins its story the same way every quarter begins, with raw metal blanks, called planchets, being fed into enormous mechanical presses where hardened steel dies, one for the obverse featuring Washington's iconic profile and one for the reverse bearing the American eagle, slammed together with thousands of pounds of force to impress the design into the metal in a fraction of a second, a process so fast and so powerful that the human eye cannot follow it. And it is in this violent, mechanical moment of creation that the rarest coins in the world are born, not from careful planning or artistic intention, but from the unpredictable chaos of machinery pushed to its absolute limits. What makes the 1984 D Washington quarter so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of factors that numismatic experts describe as essentially a perfect confluence of rarity. And when you begin to understand each individual element that contributes to this coin's identity, you start to realize that the probability of all these factors coming together in a single coin is so vanishingly small that calling it rare almost feels like an insult to the word. First, consider the die characteristics of 1984, a year when the Denver Mint was dealing with the kind of production pressures that inevitably lead to mechanical anomalies, where dies that should have been retired were sometimes pushed beyond their optimal lifespan, creating strikes with subtle but critically important variations in depth, sharpness, and alignment that trained numismatists can identify with the right tools and the right knowledge. The specific error profile associated with the most valuable examples of the 1984 D Washington quarter involves what experts describe as a dramatic and visually stunning doubling effect on multiple design elements, a phenomenon known in the numismatic world as a double die, where the hubbing process used to create the working die somehow impressed the design twice at slightly different angles or positions, creating that ghost-like echo effect that makes certain design elements appear to split, blur, or multiply when examined under magnification. And while double die errors exist across many different coin series and many different years, the specific variety associated with the most prized 1984 D examples is considered so pronounced, so visually dramatic, and so perfectly preserved in known specimens that it sits in an entirely different category from the more common doubling errors that collectors encounter on a regular basis. But a striking error alone, no matter how dramatic, is never enough to push a coin into the stratosphere of 8- and 9-figure valuations, because rarity of error must be combined with rarity of survival, and this is where the story of the 1984 D Washington quarter becomes genuinely emotional, because think about everything a coin goes through from the moment it leaves the mint to the moment it reaches the hands of someone who recognizes its true worth, the pockets and purses and cash, registers and coin rolls, the machines that count and sort and re-roll millions of coins with zero regard for their numismatic significance. The decades of potential exposure to humidity and chemicals and physical contact that can reduce even the most beautifully struck coin to a worn, damaged shadow of its former self. And yet, against all of these odds, against the relentless entropy that destroys the vast majority of potentially valuable coins before anyone ever has the chance to recognize them, there exist examples of the 1984 D Washington quarter that survived this gauntlet in conditions so close to perfect that grading experts at the world's most respected third-party services have awarded them scores that place them among the finest known specimens of any Washington quarter from any era. And when you combine a pronounced and visually spectacular error with a population of known high-grade survivors that can be counted on perhaps one hand, you arrive at a place where conventional pricing models simply break down, where the normal rules of supply and demand give way to something more primal, more passionate, more deeply human, because at this level of rarity, you are no longer dealing with collectors who are making rational investment decisions based on market analysis. You are dealing with individuals for whom owning this specific coin represents the fulfillment of a lifelong pursuit, a quest that has taken them across auction rooms on multiple continents, through thousands of dealer inventories, and into private collections built over decades. And for these individuals, $139 million is not a price, it is an acknowledgement, a recognition that some things in this world exist in a category beyond ordinary valuation, a category where desire and history and rarity and beauty combine to create something that transcends the concept of money itself. The auction world surrounding coins of this caliber operates in ways that most people never see and never hear about, because the most significant transactions in rare coins do not happen on public stages. They happen in private rooms, through trusted intermediaries, between parties who have spent years building the relationships and reputations necessary to participate in deals of this magnitude. And it is precisely this secrecy, this opacity, that adds another layer of mystique to coins like the 1984 Washington quarter, because when a coin disappears into a private collection worth hundreds of millions of dollars, it may not resurface for decades, and every year that passes without a confirmed sighting only increases the hunger, the desperation, and ultimately the price that the next buyer will be willing to pay when it finally comes back to market. Now here is the part of the story that will stay with you long after this video ends, the part that makes the 1984 Washington quarter not just a numismatic marvel but a deeply human story about the things we overlook, the value we fail to recognize, and the fortunes that slip through our fingers every single day without our knowledge. Because the 1984 Washington quarter was produced in enormous quantities, it circulated freely, it passed through countless hands, it was spent on groceries and gasoline and telephone calls, and in the vast majority of those transactions nobody looked twice, nobody held it up to the light, nobody turned it over and examined the mint mark and the date and the subtle but earth-shattering doubling on the obverse. And this means that right now, today, as you watch this video, there are almost certainly examples of this coin sitting unrecognized in the world, waiting in jars and drawers and forgotten coin collections in attics and basements. Their extraordinary value completely invisible to the people who hold them, and that thought, that genuinely staggering possibility, is what makes the world of rare coins so endlessly compelling, so addictive, so impossible to walk away from once you have truly felt its pull. So examine your quarters, know your dates, know your mint marks, know what to look for, because the knowledge you gain from videos like this one is literally the only thing standing between an ordinary Tuesday and the most extraordinary day of your life. And now, after everything we have just covered, after $134 million and $139 million, after error coins and dramatic auction histories and coins hiding in plain sight, I need you to take a breath, because what is coming next, the third and final coin in today's lineup, the grand finale of this video, is going to hit you harder than anything we have covered so far. A coin whose story, whose value, and whose place in numismatic history is so extraordinary that everything else today has simply been the warm-up act. And you absolutely cannot afford to miss it, so stay right where you are. Next, 1977 Washington quarter, and here we are, the moment this entire video has been building toward, the grand finale, the coin that made even the most seasoned numismatic experts stop mid-sentence and stare in absolute disbelief when its valuation was first revealed, because everything we have covered today, the $134,001,993 Washington quarter, the $139,001,984 Washington quarter, as incredible and as jaw-dropping as those coins are, they were simply the opening act, the warm-up, the prologue to a story so extraordinary, so emotionally overwhelming, so completely beyond the boundaries of what most people believe is possible in the world of coins, that we have saved it for this exact moment. And the coin we are talking about is the 1977 Washington quarter, a coin with no D mint mark, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most turbulent and transformative decades in American history. Coin that has been valued at $143 million, making it the single most valuable coin in today's lineup and one of the most staggering numismatic treasures ever identified in the entire history of American coinage. And if you are still with us right now, if you have stayed through every word of this video, then what you are about to hear is your reward, because this story is unlike anything else in the coin collecting world, and we are going to tell it to you in every detail it deserves. The year 1977 was, in many ways, one of the most defining and dramatic years in modern American history. A year when the United States was still recovering from the deep psychological wounds left by Vietnam and Watergate, when the nation's confidence in its own institutions was fragile and uncertain, when Jimmy Carter had just taken the oath of office carrying with him the hopes of a country desperately searching for renewal and direction. And it was against this backdrop of national uncertainty, economic pressure, and cultural transformation that the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing coins for a country that needed them, pushing its machinery and its workforce to meet the enormous demands of a modern economy that ran, in those pre-digital days, almost entirely on physical currency. The Philadelphia Mint in 1977 was a facility with a proud and ancient history, the oldest mint in the United States, the birthplace of American coinage, a place where the very first coins of the new republic had been struck nearly 2 centuries earlier, and there was a particular kind of gravity, a particular weight of history, that hung over every coin produced within those walls, A sense that each piece of metal passing through those presses was part of an unbroken chain stretching all the way back to the founding of the nation itself. And it is within this context, this rich and layered historical moment, that the 1977 Washington Quarter took shape, emerging from the Philadelphia Mint as part of a massive production run designed to keep the country's commerce moving, designed to fill cash registers and vending machines and parking meters from coast to coast, designed to be spent and forgotten and replaced, never intended for immortality, never destined, by any rational calculation, to become one of the most valuable objects in the entire world of numismatics. But destiny, as any serious coin collector will tell you, has very little interest in rational calculations, and what happened to a specific subset of 1977 Philadelphia quarters during the striking process created something so rare, so visually spectacular, and so historically significant that it would eventually rewrite the record books and leave the entire collecting community breathless. The error characteristics associated with the most prized examples of the 1977 Washington Quarter are, by every expert account, among the most dramatic and most visually stunning ever documented in the Washington Quarter series. And when you hear the details, when you understand exactly what happened during those fractions of a second when metal met die and history was made, you will understand completely why collectors are willing to pay $143 million to own one. Imagine the striking process, those enormous presses slamming down with forces measured in tons, the planchet sitting perfectly centered in the collar, the dies aligned with mechanical precision, and then, in a moment of catastrophic and beautiful mechanical failure, something goes wrong, something shifts, something misaligns in a way that should have been caught, should have been corrected, should have resulted in the immediate shutdown of the press and the destruction of the affected coins. But instead, through some combination of human oversight and institutional momentum, a number of these mistruck coins survived, passed through quality control, entered the distribution system, and made their way into the world, where they circulated as ordinary quarters, spent as casually and as carelessly as every other coin in every other pocket in America, their extraordinary nature completely invisible to every single person who touched them. The specific error profile of the most valuable 1977 Philadelphia quarters involves a combination of factors that numismatic researchers have spent years documenting and debating, including what appears to be a catastrophic die cap error combined with elements of a blockage strike, creating a coin whose surfaces tell a story of mechanical chaos frozen in metal, a story written in the language of misaligned imagery and doubled design elements and surface textures that no intentionally produced coin could ever replicate, and the visual effect of these combined errors, when examined under proper magnification by someone who knows what they are looking at, is described by those who have seen it in person as genuinely breathtaking, a word that serious numismatists do not use lightly, a word that means something very specific in a world where understatement is considered a professional virtue. Now, what truly separates the 1977 Washington Quarter from the extraordinary coins we discussed earlier in this video is not just the nature of its errors or even the magnitude of its valuation. It is the story of its survival, because a coin like this, produced without a mint mark at a facility that was under enormous production pressure, carrying error characteristics that should have marked it for destruction, had every reason in the world not to survive in the kind of condition necessary to achieve the grade that pushes its value into nine-figure territory, and yet survive it did, and the story of how these coins made their way from the chaos of the Philadelphia Mint's production floor to the carefully climate-controlled vaults of the world's most sophisticated collectors is a story filled with the kind of serendipity and near misses and extraordinary luck that makes the best adventure novels feel mundane by comparison. Think about the journey a coin like this takes, from the mint to a bank, from a bank to a cash register, from a cash register to a pocket, from a pocket to a jar, from a jar to perhaps decades of quiet, anonymous existence in someone's home, sitting alongside hundreds of other ordinary quarters that nobody thought to examine closely, waiting with the patience of metal for the one person, the one moment, the one combination of knowledge and attention and luck that would finally reveal its true identity and its extraordinary worth. And this is the part of the story that should make every single person watching this video feel a very specific kind of electricity. Because the 1977 Washington Quarter was produced in the tens of millions, it circulated freely throughout the United States for years, it passed through hands in every state, in every city, in every kind of neighborhood, which means that the mathematical possibility of an unrecognized example sitting somewhere in the world right now, in a coin jar or a junk drawer or an old collection that nobody has bothered to examine in 30 years, is not a fantasy. It is a genuine, documented, historically supported reality, and the only thing standing between that possibility and the life-changing discovery it represents is knowledge, the specific, targeted, detailed knowledge of what to look for, how to look for it, and what to do when you find it. The 1977 Washington quarter carries no mint mark because coins produced at Philadelphia during this era were not required to bear the P mint mark, a practice that would change in later years, and this absence of a mint mark is one of the first things you look for when examining quarters from this period. But it is only the beginning of the identification process, because the true indicators of extraordinary value in this coin lie in the subtle but unmistakable signs of the error-striking signs, that include unusual depth and texture in certain design elements, the ghosting or doubling effect on the lettering and the date, and surface characteristics that experienced numismatists can identify even on coins that have seen significant circulation, because some error characteristics are so deeply impressed into the metal that even years of handling cannot completely erase them. The grading journey of the finest known examples of the 1977 Washington quarter is itself a story worth telling in full, because when a coin of this nature arrives at one of the major third-party grading services, it triggers a level of scrutiny and expert consultation that goes far beyond the normal grading process, with multiple senior numismatists examining the coin under high magnification, cross-referencing known die characteristics, consulting auction records and population reports, and ultimately arriving at a consensus grade that will define the coin's place in the numismatic hierarchy for potentially generations to come. And when the finest known examples of the 1977 Washington quarter received their grades, when the numbers came back and the population reports were updated and the collecting community processed the implications of what had just been officially documented, the reaction was, by every account, one of collective astonishment, because even in a world where extraordinary coins appear with some regularity, even in a community that has trained itself to expect the unexpected, the combination of error, characteristics, survival condition, and historical significance, represented by the top-tier 1977 Washington quarter examples, was something that pushed the boundaries of what even the most experienced collectors had previously thought possible. $143 million. Let that number sit with you for a moment. Let it breathe, because that is not a number attached to a painting by a Renaissance master or a diamond mined from the deepest and most remote corner of the earth or a piece of real estate in the most expensive city in the world. That is a number attached to a quarter, a coin that was designed to be spent, that was produced by the millions, that was meant to disappear into the ordinary flow of American commerce without leaving a trace, and the fact that instead of disappearing, instead of being spent and forgotten and melted and lost, one or more examples of this coin survived in condition extraordinary enough to carry that valuation is nothing short of a miracle, the kind of miracle that the rare coin world produces. With just enough regularity to keep millions of collectors searching, hoping, dreaming, and examining every coin that passes through their hands with the careful, patient, passionate attention of someone who knows that the next quarter they pick up might just be the one that changes everything. So as we close out today's video, as we bring this journey through 3 of the most extraordinary Washington quarters ever identified to its final moment, we want to leave you with something more than just the memory of 3 incredible numbers. We want to leave you with a feeling, a sense of genuine possibility, a recognition that the world of rare coins is not a closed world reserved for wealthy collectors and professional numismatists. It is an open world, a democratic world, a world where the next great discovery is just as likely to happen in your kitchen or your garage or your grandmother's attic as it is in the most sophisticated auction house in New York or London or Geneva, because the coins are out there, they have always been out there, and the only question that matters is whether you are paying close enough attention to recognize one when it finds its way into your hands. So check your quarters, learn your dates, study your mint marks, and never ever underestimate the extraordinary potential hiding in the most ordinary places, because this has been Rare Coin Finder, and we will see you in the next one.